And also, hello, Higurashi and Spook. It's always at the beginning of stream. And now OBS updates all the media sources that aren't here. Lovely. So, we'll be getting to the end of Higurashi, no matter how long it takes. Hopefully, yet another $5, because that would suck. Hopefully, this will be a shorter stream. We'll see, we'll see. And we'll get to see how the characters die. It's fun. Fun times. Only fun times here. Hi, Saku. Hello. It's nice to have all of you here. Okay, load is how we open this, yes. I can do the things. Did we view the tips? I don't remember. I don't think so. No, we did not. Okay. Split personality. Oh boy. I'm going to have to lurk because I'm playing a game with some friends. No worries, no worries. Have a good lurk and have fun playing a game with your friends. I see it in the movies quite often, but what is it exactly? Multiple personalities are thought to be escapism. Multiple personality disorder is a form of escape? Correct. The exact mechanisms is not fully understood, but it's believed to be a type of defense for the system to retain mental stability. Your stream lagged really hard for me just now. Oops. It's fine now. Probably just your internet, to be honest. Oh, how relevant. I don't know what you mean by that, if you meet you. Anywho. Hypothetically, poor people imagining themselves as wealthy is a form of escapism, is it not? Is this also a form of multiple personality disorder? We love using outdated phrases. Was it actually outdated in the 80s? I think it might have been. I don't remember how long multiple personality disorder was considered outdated term. But you know how society is behind on that shit anyways. I wouldn't go that far, but broadly speaking, one could infer that. No. It's something that occurs in us all. Escapism, sure. Does a split personality occur when one cannot tell which is reality and which is the escape? That's difficult to say. There are some who agree with that and some who disagree. There is no consensus. Wow, I'm so good at the words, guys. Then is the occurrence of multiple personalities still an unknown phenomenon? Something not fully comprehended in the psychiatric field? Yes. Even over here in 2022. It's beautiful, ain't it? Unfortunately, that is the current state of things. We can only put our hope in future research. But it's sort of cool having split personality. What kind of people get split personalities? The heavily traumatized. Those are the people. Recent studies find that those who develop it, or rather, those who are more susceptible to developing it, may be genetically predisposed or may have had abnormal mental development. I mean, trauma at a young age would be abnormal mental development, I suppose. Some say that childhood abuse increases the chances. It's like that's traumatic. Speaking of which, Person A here experienced abuse as a child, didn't he? How sad. Person A has seven... Ugh. Person A has 7 different personalities. I have heard this name before, but I thought it was an anime, not a visual novel. It is both. The anime is an anime adaptation of the visual novel. And there's actually been 2 total anime adaptations now. There's the one from like the 2000s, and then there's a more recent one that, like, first part was within the last 2 years. I don't remember exactly when. But yeah, it is both. So you are not wrong. Let's watch a video of him. Oh, that's nice. Right after these commercials. Oh, television. I feel like 7 might be an oddly specific number. How many people are in the group? Keiichi, Shion, Rena, Rika, Satoko, Mion. Yeah, I guess that's the number of people in the group. So I guess that's not a coincidence at all. That's nice. At the 7th mart. The 7th mart was a bargain supermarket with food and alcohol. What's this, Keiichi? So many. There's no reason to get all of the different kinds, is there? Thank you, dog. Also the dog outside that is encouraging his poor behavior. How dare. I flopped all over the different colored cup noodle bowls into the cart. Dog. The dog outside is like on my right hand side, and the dog inside is on my left hand side, so it really is just stereo dog communication here. Kinda wish you guys could hear the dog outside too, but like, it's better that you can't. Heck to what? The stereo doggage? Cup noodles have gotten so elaborate recently, and there are a bunch of different types. I want to try each of them at least once. I knew it was pretty selfish of me, but I thought I'd at least give it a try. That's fair. Keiichi, buy them in a big case, it's cheaper. Dad faltered. Well, I had a feeling it'd end up like this. Dad knew there was no point in him butting in. Then I'd only get the one... Then I would get to eat one kind. Only get to eat one kind. Wow. I get bored with it. I was resisting as a formality. Okay, too. I had already given up inside and wasn't sure which case of noodles to get. Pork. Thank you, Nigiri. Appreciate it. I guess there's 3 dogs after all. If you can't pick, then mommy will pick for you. You don't have to rush me. I quickly searched the cases of noodles for what I want. Nah, heck to the number 7. Like the 7th mart, the 7 personalities, and the game being developed by 7th expansion. There's a lot of 7. Pork bone and ginger, large cup. Hey Keiichi, can't you get a more normal one? If I let mom pick, she'd err on the side of safety and get soy sauce or salt flavored. Pork bone is good. I don't want a big bowl of tasteless stuff. I remembered insisting that the noodles I picked were the right kind. Oh boy, the creepy music. In this frozen memory in time, this encapsulated world, I didn't have the power to look around my surroundings. So, I did what I could and reached out with my hearing and vision, sharpening my senses to find the presence I overlooked. No matter how much I searched through my field of vision, I couldn't see Rena. I rewound the situation, searching. But of course, I couldn't find her. Then, was she spying at me from my blind spot? I go through the sound of presences again, looking. I could sense the other customers. I didn't think about all of those sevens, but yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of sevens. Makes you kind of wonder why. Actually, never mind. I can't say that because it's a spoiler. Never mind. They were all mixed up about moving as they please. There was nobody looking over this way, and no one trying to get behind me. Not here. Couldn't be here. Probably wasn't here. I would definitely notice if someone was right behind me, even when I was on my guard. I smiled wryly at the thought of using a vague word like probably, right before contradicting it with definitely. Then I paused my mental replay as a chill ran down my spine. There was definitely a presence like a shadow behind me. Shadow the Hedgehog. There was a terror unlike any other. If a presence really had manifested behind me, I would definitely have turned around to check for it. But the world had moved on, and there was no way for me to turn around. While carrying that frightening shadow on my back, I was gleefully running around the store searching for a case of noodles. Running through the instant noodles section, bad-mouthing my mom. But there was that presence constantly at my back, sticking to me like a shadow. No way to see what it was, realizing it now after the fact was horrifying and repulsive. In that moment of time, I was running around gleefully, carrying that cardboard box. Tip-tap. But listening to that moment again, I could hear footsteps other than my going pit-pat with every step. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pat, pit-pat, pit-pat. Tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pat, pit-pat. Tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pat, pit-pat. While I was running, the sound of those barefoot footsteps going pit-pat were right behind mine. Me running around gleefully, in that closed-off moment in time. No, it's just Tails. But I didn't hear it. No, I heard it. That's how I remembered it. I didn't think I had heard anything. Tails does have a history of stalking. I didn't realize this was a Tails call-out post, but I guess it is now. That's why I didn't turn around. That is why I didn't turn around. In that moment, the pit-pat of those footsteps were following me the entire time. I couldn't run faster and escape. I couldn't run any faster than I had ran at that time. I couldn't turn around. I hadn't turned around before, not once. Then I returned to my parents and started talking. The shadow-like presence was right at my back. Since I didn't move, the shadow didn't move. That is why it made no sound. That was all. At that time, I hadn't taken a single step while talking with my parents. Yeah, not a single step while walking. That makes so much fucking sense. I was just standing there. This was undeniable. And yet, I heard it. A pit-pat. So terrifying. A pit-pat. That shouldn't be. If I took 3 steps, it followed 3 steps. Wasn't that the rule? There was no sound other than that. At that time, the entire world had gone dark. A sudden darkness. It was the end of my reflective journey. I was tired. Wish I could remember Eggman's call out of Shadow the Hedgehog. I can't really help you with that one, unfortunately. You'd have to wait for Sonic 3 to know for sure, I guess. I wanted to end it. Someone turn on the light, except my body couldn't move. As if I was sewn into that moment in time. Pit-pat. My past self's hair stood on end. That's impossible. Now that's just breaking the rules. I hadn't moved. Haven't moved. Once again, so good at the words. So you shouldn't be moving either. You couldn't move. So you shouldn't be able to move either. Follow the rules. Pit-pat. Yet that sound echoed in the darkness once again. The hair on the back of my neck prickled up on end. It was so close that it was hard to tell whether it was touching the hair or not. Why couldn't I move? Like how the presence was moving behind me. I quickly realized I could move. It's just that I was scared and I didn't want to. But now was the only time I could turn around. It was something unforgivable in this moment in time. But I needed to turn around immediately. As if my entire being was trying to force me to stop. It began to administer a pain like a needle being struck into my every pore. I'll turn around. Nah, I mean the bit from the Sonic Adventure 2 fandom. Honestly, I kind of realized that eventually, but, like, I still can't help you with that. I'm pretty sure I'm hearing my voice from you guys watching my stream. It's a time. Really adds to the atmosphere. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. A scream I was unable to vocalize. And I refused to vocalize it. I turned around. At first, I couldn't understand the meaning of it. What? What is this? The situation in front of my eyes. It was like a mouth biting an apple and slurping the juice. The way you would do with an apple. My mind was being eaten. It began to munch down. Keiichi, my dude. Slurping the juices. Because it was like an apple. That's nice. Thank you for the imagery, Keiichi. Meaning, what was in front of me was... I'm not recreating that scream either. You guys can imagine all those A's. I believe in your creative abilities, chat. Detective Onikakashi. Thank you, achievement. Love that. Okay. Well, that's a nice note to leave off on before hitting the continue button. Everyone's favorite. Oh boy. I guess I'd be lying if I said I didn't get any sleep. So you were able to sleep at all? That's kind of impressive. I tried to stay awake all night, but there were definitely gaps in my memory. I mean, that's still possible if you're awake the entire time, but I digress. I guess I kept nodding off and jerking awake in a panic all night. I spent all night hugging the metal bat and sat on the top of my futon I used to barricade my door. Waiting, watching, just in case someone tried to break in through my window. Me to myself in a monotone. Wah. Excellent, excellent. If I left this spot, someone would break through the door, setting the futon flying and attack me. Rah. Waluigi voice. Excellent, excellent. But if I stopped watching the window, someone would break through the glass and attack me. I tried telling myself I was just being paranoid, but I couldn't sleep. The thought of being so vulnerable scared the living daylights out of me. If sleep meant taking that risk, I didn't need it. It was so much better to just stay awake. Either way, you're fucking gonna die, Keiichi. Hate to break it to ya. At some point during that endless cycle of nodding off and jolting awake, light began to shine outside. But that was it. It wasn't so much the morning as it was just the sun simply having risen. What do you think the morning is, Keiichi? I snuck a peek out through the curtains. Rena was gone. I couldn't see her anywhere, no matter how hard I looked. Finally, I could breathe a deep sigh of relief. The night was finally over. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tired, but I didn't feel like sleeping at the moment. I still had time. But I needed to make my own breakfast, so I'd better get started soon. Skipping school was also an option. With my mom gone, it'd be easy to play hooky. Honestly, I debated it. The risk involved in leaving my house was incalculable. So staying holed up in here was probably my safest option. But staying here wouldn't solve anything. Oishi-san wouldn't help me without cold, hard evidence. Neither he nor my parents. So, unless I found some sort of proof, these restless nights would never end. Ugh. I stretched my body, tilted my head back, and closed my eyes just like I did every morning. I regulated my breathing and regained my senses. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Let's go to school. Let's wait until they set their trap for me. But that didn't mean I was just going to twiddle my thumbs. I needed to avoid that trap and secure irrefutable evidence. Take note of the plates of any car that drives by. If I see someone suspicious, check their clothes and face. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was preparing myself to turn their attack against them and retaliate. The tension was similar to when two samurai were both aiming to slay each other with a single motion as they drew their katanas. I was not at a disadvantage. Are you sure about that? I know you didn't sleep much, but come on, dude. I would have a chance to retaliate. I finally felt a bit of courage growing in my chest. Alright, let's go to school. I tightened my grip on Satoshi's bat. He was the only partner I could count on. This guy that I never met and is probably long dead. Satoshi, please lend me your strength. And entrust your dying regrets to me, since you were probably murdered. Glad we're on the same page, Keiichi. I'll make sure I dispel them. With renewed resolve, I checked the clock. It was still early. Of course I was going to school by myself today. If I didn't want to run into Rena or Mion, I needed to leave now. What about your breakfast? The shattered fragments of the cupboard were still strewn all over the entryway. Right. I meant to clean that up last night, but never got around to it with a phone call and everything. If my parents came back and saw this while I was at school, I would never hear the end of it. Still, I'd be wasting time if I cleaned it up right now, and considering what would happen if I ran into Rena or Mion. Oogum boogum. Thank you, Catman. Is that you being startled by Catman spooky? Even if not, that's how I'm gonna imagine it because of the timing. Seriously though, welcome Catman. Hope you've had a good day today and good yesterday. And the dog just barking over nothing like normal. Good time to pause, I guess. Okay, I think he's done barking. It wouldn't be too late to clean it up after I got back home. Making extra certain that the doors were locked, I left the house. My uniform was still covered in mud from yesterday, so I left it in the washer. Today I was going to go to school in a tracksuit. By wearing a different outfit this morning, my mind was forced to accept that today was different from yesterday. I had a hunch. Today might be the day I get killed. Probably. Keep your guard up, Keiichi Mayabata. The only one who gets to decide if today is my last is me. Suicide, maybe? Ow. He has a hunch and a tracksuit. He is prepared. Definitely. It seems like his strategy to not get killed is to kill himself first. 'Cause how else? Thank you for the continued borking, Nigiri. Very much so appreciated. I spent the morning practicing my swing like it was my natural routine. After a while, Renner arrived at school. Our eyes met, but we said nothing. Rena said nothing about last night. I mean, she didn't speak at all, so... as if it never happened. Like I said, she didn't speak at all, so... but I could see that those events are real by the wounds carved into her fingers. I just heard her telling Satoko and the others that the bandages were from hurting herself in the kitchen. He at least has the bat, right? Oh yes, the metal bat that can do oh so much. Though, it wasn't like it bothered me. The details that Oishi-san shared about Rena's incident before her transfer played vividly in my mind. Now that I knew about it, I couldn't even dream of Rena as a cute, ideal girl. Kei-chan, I see you're still aiming for the nationals. It was Mion. I had already sensed her approach, so I wasn't that surprised. No, Mion. If you understand, then leave me alone. I'm busy practicing. I gave her a curt reply without my usual jokes. Then I gave the bat an even larger swing, tactically keeping Mion from getting any closer. Hey Kei-chan, take it easy. I think Mion got the message, but she still urged me to give it a rest. Kill myself before I get killed makes sense. You can think of it like a whole, you can't fire me, I quit, but more permanent. Homeroom's not that far off, is it? Just let me finish practicing. I swung the bat even harder as a sign of my refusal. Kei-chan, how did you get into baseball? Just recently. Oh, that said when. Anyways. Recently? You mean yesterday? Don't ask if you already know. Oh dear. That's a very unsportsmanlike reply. You're distracting me. Go away. I ignored Mion and kept swinging. Normally she'd get mad or bored and leave if someone gave her the cold shoulder like this. But Mion just stood there, waiting patiently for me to stop swinging. I didn't sense any hostility. But we were at school, in plain view. I doubt she'd suddenly attack me here. Or was that too naive? Still, I was starting to get tired. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to take a break and hear her out. You need me for something, right? What is it? Sweat poured from me as I stopped swinging. I noticed my shoulders were heaving as I breathed. I cursed my lack of exercise. At this rate, I might not be able to move as needed when the time came. I should probably keep practicing my swings to build stamina in addition to the excuse for carrying the bat around with me. Well, it's nothing important. If you're tired, I can ask again later. Now is fine. I'm only dealing with you right now because I judged the situation to be safe. Talking to you alone and away from others? That's out of the question. Well, Mion was uncharacteristically trying to choose her words. But unlike Oishi-san, I didn't look like she was going to talk about something I'd rather not hear. Mion was puzzled, trying to find the right thing to say. But then she gave a hearty laugh to break herself out of that mire. This old man's just no good at this stuff. Having a poor vocabulary hurts. What's this all of a sudden? If you have something to say, just say it. Stop it. Stop that swinging. She got straight to the point. Her request was so frank, I didn't understand it for a moment. I already stopped swinging to listen to her, hadn't I? I just stopped, didn't I? That's not what I meant. I want today to be the last day you swing that bat. Oh, it will be, honey. I'm sorry. It took me some time to understand what she was asking for. What's wrong with swinging a bat? You know damn well what's wrong with that, Keiichi. Why? It's none of your business, is it? I'm not bothering anyone, am I? You are. Mion said it flat out. This didn't make any sense, and that was really irritating. Why did I bother anybody? Mion was at a loss for words. But she finally made up her mind and spoke. Though she stuttered as she said it. Because, Kei-chan, that's someone else's bat. You shouldn't borrow it without permission. It was left behind by a student who transferred, right? I'm just borrowing it until he comes back for it. Huh? Yeah. He transferred. Mion grew uncharacteristically flustered. That made it all too clear that his transfer was a lie. But strange, isn't it? For the older brother to transfer by himself, while his little sister stayed behind? Mion couldn't hide her reaction as my words shook her up. Kei-chan, you knew? Satoshi Hojo, Satoku's older brother, right? The one demoned away last year. Unable to respond to that, Mion fell silent. Rena asked the same thing. Why did he start swinging that bat? She told me Satoshi did the same thing, practicing his swings, right before he went missing. So, is this some kind of omen for Yashiro-sama's curse? Shh. Mion panicked and looked around. Please, Kei-chan, don't mention Yashiro-sama so recklessly. I don't believe in him, but the others very much do. Rena especially. Dangerously so? Anyway, you're scaring everyone. If you're just fooling around, then stop it. You have to stop acting like Satoshi. I was the one who was scared. Who do I have to thank for taking up this bat in the first place? But it's still unsettled to me knowing that my actions are overlapping with Satoshi's. It would be one thing if someone suggested it, but I thought I was making my own decisions. I'll say this now. I don't know anything about Satoshi. After all, you didn't tell me anything about him. We didn't mean to hide it. You were hiding the incidents that happen every year, weren't you? That's because we didn't want to, you didn't want to scare me? That's your reason for leaving me out? No, we didn't mean to. Mion, I asked you directly if something happened at the dam, didn't I? And you told me nothing happened. When someone was dismembered and murdered. You lied to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. Friends don't hide things from each other, right? Isn't that right? Then you all aren't my friends. Kei-chan, Mion looked helpless and flustered. Was I imagining the tears in her eyes? I never could have imagined Mion acting like this. And I'm sure she couldn't ever imagine you acting like this. Oh, by the way, those get well mochi you brought the other day, they were good. I thought I was going to bleed. Who did it? You? Or Rena? Me. She admitted to it so easily. I couldn't help but be surprised at how easy that was. You could have killed me. How could you do that to a friend? But it was just a little prank. Yeah, sticking a needle into a mochi is such a little prank. She's a prank, bro. Thanks, Mion. Mion gave me a wry smile mixed with confusion, causing even more anger to well up inside me. You think that was a prank? I grabbed Mion by the collar and lifted her up. I thought she was taller than you. Whoops. Anyways. That wasn't the same as putting Tabasco sauce in a piece of mochi. A needle in mochi is a prank? Indeed. Prank gone wrong. Keiichi fucking died. Whoops. Anyways. It was a needle. A sewing needle. If I had swallowed that and lodged it in my throat, what did you think would happen? Mion's face froze as her body rattled in fear. This wasn't the Mion Sonozaki I knew anymore. Anyways, you're not my friend. There's no reason for me to listen to someone who's not my friend. So just leave me alone for a while. Got it? Mion wasn't replying anymore. It won't be that easy to erase me, you know. The cops have been on you from the start. So don't think you can make me disappear like you did Satoshi. I said it clearly. This was my declaration of war. I think you guys were suspects in the previous instance, too. I also know you've spent a lot of time with the cops ever since the anti-dam movement. Don't think you can hide it from me. Got that? How? How did you know? Stabs with needle. It's just a prank, bro. Mion stood there with a dumbstruck look on her face. That was when I heard the principal ringing the bell for school. It was time for morning homeroom. Let's go. The class representative needs to be there, right? At that moment, for the first time, I realized Mion was sobbing as tears ran down her cheeks. You're so mean. Ugh. You're so mean, Kei-chan. I wanted to console her, but I shut my mouth. I had no need to feel guilty. I'm going. Don't be late for homeroom. I left Mion, still shaking, as I turned around to head for the entrance. I had no idea how troubling it was to make a girl cry. Behind my back, I could hear her muttering. It was a faint mutter as she was speaking to herself. So that's how it is, huh? She wasn't saying it to anyone. It was Mion talking to herself. But it was a sobbing voice that had a kind of giddy, cursing tone. I inadvertently stopped and turned back towards her. So was that bastard. He licked it all to Kei-chan. She balled up her fist as her tears continued to rain down. She glared at a spot at the ground with a terrifying, yet smiling face, cursing. A chill ran down my spine from that demonic expression. This transformation, Mion's transformation, was different from Rena's. I should have killed him back then. He forgot the mercy I showed him just because he was going to retire this year. Retiring this year. Was she talking about Oishi-san? Damn it. Damn it. I'm going to kill that damn old man. It felt like the air itself had begun distorting. With Mion at the center, the world had begun to twist and spiral, bending, whirling. This was the first time I'd experienced such a visage. Rise! Attention! Mion made up an excuse for her red eyes by saying there was something wrong with her contacts. After that, neither Rena nor Mion spoke to me for the rest of the day. No shit. Neither Satoko nor Rika-chan looked me in the eye. Also no shit. Strangely, I didn't feel hurt. Everything had just went back to the way it was. The month since I transferred in had been almost too much fun. That was all. School was supposed to be something like this to begin with. I should have disliked that feeling, but today, it felt oddly refreshing. The bell rung, sounding the end of the monotonous school day, which had felt so dense yet so dull. Since it would cause a lot of unpleasant memories if they asked me to join into the club activities, I promptly started prepping to go home without even looking at them. I stuffed the contents of my desk into my bag, wrapped my hand around Satoshi's now familiar bat, and began heading towards the entrance. I was assailed by both the exhausting relief that nothing had happened today and the tiring possibility of the same thing repeating tomorrow. But deep down inside me, I think my thing is broken. Are you broken? Yeah, you're broken. How dare you break on me? I just had a feeling. It's like, maybe I should check on the little PNG tuber. Only for it to be broken. Big sad. Okay, we're good. See Bunny back in action. Far beneath, in the recesses of my heart, achingly, I knew this would be the last day of this cycle. I couldn't tell how the ending would be, whether it would end as I wished it to end, or if it would end as I hoped it wouldn't. Regardless, in my current state, there was something more important than how things would end. There was something I wanted to know. Why did I have to be killed? How did it come to this? Why? For what purpose? The sunlight was relentless. The sun, the heat, even the air. They wouldn't give me my answers. Dog. Why? Did my PNG tuber seriously break immediately? Yeah, it it says it broke immediately. I'm not gonna bother. We can just enjoy the wiggling ears, the cute avatar, and the occasional blink. We'll just pretend in our hearts that the mouth is moving too. We'll be imaginative beings today. Anyways. Or could it be that the cries of the Higurashi were desperately trying to tell me something? Somewhere, mixed in with their shrieks, Tomitake-san and Satoshi were also probably trying to tell me something. I simply haven't been able to realize it yet. When I do realize it, I wonder if I will be amongst the Higurashi fruitlessly crying to the next victim. Glancing down at my feet, I saw a Higurashi on its back, spasming weakly. Bui, bui, bui. There was still much of the summer left, yet this one was already chirping its last song. I couldn't tell what it was saying, no matter how hard I listened. But I had to try. Keiichi's become a Higurashi whisperer. No, dear. I had to try to listen to what it was desperately trying to tell me. At that moment, the shrills of the Higurashi ceased all at once, as if they had huddled together, fearing that the person who'd brought them to their dreadful fate had arrived. There was no mistaking it. A presence was approaching. The sounds of footsteps was almost non-existent. I'll go with the dog the moment he needs. There he go. I didn't mean to hit my mic. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm not done yet. Let's just let him get it out of his system. Top ways to break a horror atmosphere. Dog barking in the background. Is he done now? I think so. I honestly don't remember where I left off, so I guess we'll be reading a little bit, probably. If the Higurashi hadn't warned me by ending their chirping, I wouldn't have noticed. My exhaustion left me in a heartbeat, and its place was a rush of adrenaline that sharpened all of my senses. I was barely able to hold back that creeping, suffocating feeling of horror. Welcome to being in the horror genre, Keiichi. It wasn't something I could hold back for long. But in this moment, when I needed to be razor sharp, I was able to retain my composure. I wasn't going to shout like I did yesterday. I hid myself calmly amongst the trees, waiting for my pursuer's shadow. Keiichi's become one with the trees. Could I get them to pass by me? No. Since I was able to hear their footsteps, they were probably also able to hear mine. They might have already been able to tell that I'd hidden myself and was holding my breath. The person tailing me, was it Rena, just like yesterday? If it was Rena, I wouldn't hold back. I could just yell at her and make her go ahead like yesterday. If it wasn't Rena, it would depend on how they acted, I guess. The footsteps ambled closer. I swallowed, wiped my clammy hands on my pants, and readjusted the grip on the bat. I could tell that the fear that I had beaten back once was now waiting for another opening to come at me. Who could it be? I peeked out from behind the tree at the person following me. My imagination hadn't let me astray. It was Rena. Obviously. There was a bit of relief as I realized it was someone I knew, but that feeling left me in an instant. Spooky indeed. Spooky indeed. Which is kind of funny to say since there's a person in the chat that goes by spooky. Spooky atmosphere, though. Spooky is at home, I guess. I don't know. This wasn't the same Rena that I knew. Her eyes were dark and lifeless, but her mouth appeared as if it was carved into a crescent. Yes, it looked like she was grinning slightly. And in her right hand was an axe. Metal bat versus axe. Who will win? Place your votes in the chat now. I hid myself behind the tree once again and recalled the unbelievable sight I just saw. What was that just now? The embodiment of terror laid bare. Baseball, practicing my swing. There were tons of excuses for me to be carrying a bat. But for that axe? There was no excuse for that. Metal axe. An axe? Just like that? Keiichi-kun, are you playing hide and seek? I wonder. My heart was pounding. Hurt enough that I had trouble breathing. That little composure I had been able to hold onto was now crushed. In its place, cold sweat gushed forth, covering my entire body, letting me know precisely what kind of emotion had taken hold. Not good, not good, not good. I wasn't able to hide myself completely. She already knew I was here. Vote axe. Were you trying to scare me? I wonder. I decided that it would be better to reveal myself now, since there was still space between us, than to allow Rena to come any closer. Weird, I thought her thing was a machete. Probably a different volume. I mean, it could be a weird translation thing, but what you're imagining is in fact what she is holding, if that makes any sense. Also, could be technically more of an axe than it was a machete. Oh yeah, they Chekhov's gunned her axe earlier with Colonel Sanders. What? I don't know what you mean by Chekhov's. It's the same exact weapon, though. Like, same axe. I adjusted my grip on the bat again. Colonel. Yep, Colonel. I will say what I want. You cannot change my ways. Readied myself mentally. I stepped out from behind the tree. I found you, Keiichi-kun. Rena was pleased that she found me, elicting a mysterious giggle. Her mouth was smiling, but her eyes told me she was displeased by the fact that I had been hiding. Those eyes, they were just so empty. My legs began to quiver. Not good. In the pit of my stomach, some sort of vicious hot and cold substance began spreading around. If I allowed it, that substance would slip into my bloodstream and undoubtedly freeze all the organs in my body. God, reading hard. Not good, not good. I'll be devoured by Rena at this rate. Strike back. Don't lose. What is it? I blustered, hiding behind my bravado. But Rena didn't flinch one bit. Just the same as Keiichi-kun. I'm heading home. Then what about that axe? Then what about that bat you're holding? I'm practicing my swing. Then I'm treasure hunting. Rena gave a flippant explanation as to why she had such a fearsome weapon. Treasure hunting? At the treasure mountain near the dam site, I found a new cute thing. So I needed this to dig it out. Chekhov's gun is a plot device / writing device where you point out a thing exists and make sure it comes up again later in the story. Ah, I see. How could I believe that? You wouldn't believe it, would you? Rena's laugh was obviously very strange. It's characterized by a mantra of, if you have a gun in the start of the film, it should be fired by the end. That's fair. I'd seen Rena transformation many times before, but the one today was completely different. Like her mischievous tone and the shrewd glint in her eyes. It wasn't something that roundabout. I'm not sure what to say. It was just so obvious. Wait, Keiichi-kun. Rena didn't stop walking, even as she let out that eerie laugh. Whenever Rena got too close to me, I would scurry away and turn back towards her. The cycle repeated over and over. No matter how you looked at it, I was being chased by Rena and was trying to escape. Don't follow me! I can't do that. My house is this way, after all. When I met with Rena on this road yesterday, she cowered and trembled as she followed my commands. But today was different. Rena didn't show a hint of trepidation. Trepidation? Words. Actually, wasn't I the one who was cowering? If the way home for Rena and me was the same, that's fine. I just changed my route. That'd work out, wouldn't it? I turned onto a side street I'd never been down and knew little about. But Rena saw me do that and followed me while laughing. Why? Why? Aren't you going home? Then just go home down the street you normally do. Why? Why would you follow me down this weird little side road? Those thoughts screamed in my head, eventually spilling out of my mouth. Oh, why are you following me? The tone of my voice was already tinged with terror. Because I want to talk to Keiichi-kun. Keiichi-kun wants to talk to Rena too, doesn't he? Doesn't he? I don't want to talk about anything with you. That's a lie, isn't it? There's something you want to ask me about, isn't there? Not at all. I have nothing to talk to you about. That's a lie, isn't it? Rena's face makes me want to sprint in the opposite direction. Now imagine that face and an axe. It's not a lie. Lies! Rena's scream echoed, startling some nearby birds into flight. I cringed in fear. The only other thing I could do was increase my pace. Let's talk, Keiichi-kun. Talk. Talk. No thank you indeed. You are a reasonable person. You should have Spooky voice a random character in this. But Spooky's in the other room, and I only have the one microphone, and I don't feel like sharing. Why was I running down this unfamiliar and deserted street? Doesn't Keiichi-kun have something he's worried about? Nothing at all. I'm not worried about anything. Lies! Even though I was running. Even though Rena was walking. Why wasn't I getting any further away? Farther. Whatever. Same difference. Words are interchangeable sometimes, even if I'm supposed to be reading what's there. I know. I really do know. You're scared, aren't you, Keiichi-kun? I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anything. Lies! My breathing grew heavy, and it felt like my legs were giving out from beneath me. And I wasn't even breaking a sweat. I'll listen. This time I'll listen. I had no idea what she was talking about, or what exactly she wanted to do. This time I'll listen. I'll be different from this time. Wow, that was not words. It'll be different from the time with Satoshi-kun. When she said Satoshi's name, I turned back for a moment. Even as I did that, Rena was still advancing. I couldn't afford to stop. Satoshi was worried too. It looked like he was having such a hard time. But I didn't listen. I was so sad. Me like, bitch, yeah, I'm scared of you with an axe. But Keiichi does have a metal bat. Like, he's not totally defenseless. Where did the street connect to? All these twists and turns, ups and downs. It was hard to believe that this was even remotely in the direction towards my house. My sense of direction had long since gone out the window. I really regretted it when Satoshi-kun transferred out. Mouse, how dare you? Good old Bat-kun. Wait, Mouse behaved okay. Hang on. I thought that if I had listened, he may not have transferred out. I really regretted that. The road led me deeper into the forest. Wasn't I getting farther away from the village the more I ran? I lost more and more of my composure the more I thought about it. But despite this realization, my inner self was still disturbingly calm. So you see, I vowed that if there was someone struggling like Satoshi-kun did, I'd save them. I didn't want to see anyone transfer out again. Damn it. What does transfer even mean? I won't let you transfer me. I won't end up the same as Satoshi. Come on, Keiichi-kun. Talk to me. I'll be able to understand you, Keiichi-kun. I'm your ally. I started wheezing, out of breath. My lungs were so hot that they felt like they were going to explode, and my heart was beating as hard as it possibly could. I should have practiced running instead of my swing. I couldn't even afford to scoff at that stupid thought. If Keiichi-kun doesn't have anything to worry about, he'll go back to normal. Everyone will be back to being friends and we can enjoy club activities again. Next time we'll team up and beat Mii-chan. Yeah, how much fun that would be. Rena couldn't even imagine how much I had wished I could turn back to the clock on these past few days. You could be nice to me again, too. I want to go searching for treasure again. This time I'll prepare a nice lunch. Actually, we could just go right now. Let's go to the dam site together. I'll show you the cute thing I just found. I'm sure you'll like it too. My footsteps made pathetic flapping sounds as my legs wobbled and faltered. Wow. We should do a Mythbuster style test to see which is more effective weapon between an axe and a bat. That's I don't think any of us have the money for both the bat, the axe, and those testing dummies. So unless you want to be a testing dummy, I'm not sure how well that would be carried out. Hot on my heels, Rena's steps were sharply breaking twigs underfoot. I had to accept it. Cuts aluminum bat with axe. So it seems by the way of scientific method, Keiichi was fucked. I guess that's another way to test it. I was on the run, being chased by Rena. If she caught me, it was all over. I realized it instinctively. I couldn't even begin to think of what the end would entail. Just that if I was caught, it was all over. That's all I knew. It didn't matter how it was going to end. I wouldn't let it end. I got hiccup wine. Not without knowing anything. Not yet. The momentary lapse was all it took. Of all the things that could have happened, my knees buckled underneath me, and I crumbled towards the ground. I appreciate the text just gently floating there. I tried to stand frantically, urging my legs to respond. I used my bat as a makeshift cane to prop myself up, but Rena was already standing right in front of me. Compared to me, out of breath and utterly exhausted, Rena was so cool and composed that she could have froze the air around her. Okay. She wasn't breathing hard at all. Rather, I couldn't even sense if her heart was beating. Are you afraid of something, I wonder? It's not like you to tremble, Keiichi-kun. Her expression looked almost affectionate. Those soulless eyes, that mask of affection. As she admonished me for trembling, Rena's hands deftly slipped over her head. The blur of arms as they moved made me feel as if I was staring at the godliness of the thousand-armed Buddha. Then, as both of her hands met above her head, the axe that she held came into focus. I stared up at it in disbelief. It was all I could do. Tell me, what happened to Satoshi? Rena stayed like that, with her axe raised above her head, and solemnly opened her mouth. It was as if she was expressing a farewell to her friend she was never to see again. That cruel scenario resided somewhere in her actions. I told you, Satoshi-kun transferred. Out. Enough of that transfer crap. It means demon away, doesn't it? Doesn't it? You can tell me now, can't you? Who made Satoshi disappear? Was it you? Mion? Or someone in this village? Answer me! I became frantic the more I screamed, but Rena did nothing but maintain the smile frozen on her face. I have no idea what Keiichi-kun is talking about. Then I'll say it in a way so you do. Who is the perpetrator of this chain of mysterious deaths? You seem to be confused, Keiichi-kun. Well, there is no human perpetrator. Everything's by Yashiro-sama's will. Isn't Yashiro-sama's curse just superstition? You believe in that too? It's not about believing or not. Yashiro-sama exists. Period. Rena's gaze grew even more gelid? Oh man, this little part makes me actually want to try and play this. Episode 1 is free on Steam, so you could play it easily. Though I will warn you that, like, I have, like, about 14 hours in with gameplay right about now. So it's a long play just for episode 1. It did indeed get redder. The ferocity of her stare was so intense, not allowing me to question anything. There's just no way that something only like Oyashiro-sama could exist. You don't believe in Oyashiro-sama? There's no way I could believe it. There's no way it could exist. It exists. Oyashiro-sama exists. Keiichi-kun should have felt it personally. I never felt something like that. Keiichi-kun, haven't you felt someone apologizing to you before? Constantly, on top of that. All noise from the outside world disappeared. Only Rena's voice resounded, loudly and terribly. You see, until you forgive them, they'll always be with you. At school, at home, at your bedside. I couldn't understand what Rena was saying. It came to me too. Gelid, icy or cold. I feel like we've encountered this word before now that you've mentioned that. Anyways, Yashiro-sama did. That's why I transferred and came back to Hinamizawa. I don't understand. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? What was Rena saying? Hasn't Yashiro-sama come to you as well, Keiichi-kun? We did discuss this before. Oh dear. I'm probably the only one who you can confide in. Wow, words. I won't let you transfer out, okay? Rena's demented laughter clanged around inside my head. Wasn't Rena saying Yashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night I had heard about what... blah 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 blah. I had heard about that when I asked about Rena. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? Oishi-san began speaking. Neither the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there's no preliminary report. Basically, the police hadn't intervened in this matter. So all of these details are just what I heard from those involved. Meaning it's not that credible. You said there were victims? Didn't Rena just break all the windows? No. Rena Ryugu had attacked 3 boys, using a metal bat. 2 of them made it out with only bruises, but the other had been injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged. Wow, so good at reading this. Wouldn't that be considered assault? Shouldn't the police have arrested her? For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges. Wow. There's no report to the police, so... They were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally there'd be a criminal investigation. But why didn't they press charges? I tried asking the 3 male victims for their side of the story. They were all reluctant. It's hard to say, but they were all afraid. Even after she had transferred schools. Oishi-san, could you summarize it, starting from the beginning? Rena hit people while she broke the windows? Or was it, she started breaking the windows after she got bored of hitting people? They sounded similar, but the meanings were drastically different. On an undisclosed date, Rena Ryugu was conversing with 3 male students, close friends of hers, near the pool storage shed. Who were those 3? I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Rena Ryugu, and it seems like they were a group of friends. She was the lone girl in their group. So it wasn't that strange that the 4 of them were together. So what happened? I don't know the reason why. She took the baseball team's bat that was in the pool storage shed and beat the 3 of them down one after the other. What? There were no witnesses. This is an account pieced together by the information given at the time of the incident. One day after school, Rena and 3 male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help, rather, they usually met up there. It appears it became a heated discussion. At that time, Rena underwent a change. The change was so abrupt that the 3 of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends one after the other, leaving her friends covered in blood with gashes on their head. She made her way towards the school building. Then she broke the glass windows, one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared on scene and subdued her. What was the change Rena underwent? What matches up in the statements from the 3 was a sudden change. The point that there was a transformation. Transformation? I also could recall Rena's transformation. I'd seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Rena that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Rena. That transformation they're talking about, had it happened before? No, there was nothing like that. As far as I could find out, in her medical history and past, there was nothing like that. Does that happen often? Or people change suddenly like Rena did? Of course it does. There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that. Then, you're saying there was a dormant element in Rena that caused that transformation? I cannot say that for certain. But according to the statements of her friends, it's hard to believe she had such a side to her. Kind, caring, and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat. Who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. I, myself, sometimes believe that I was mistaken for thinking that was Rena, even now. Then, what happened after that? There was a hospital right across from the room, so the 3 of them were carried in and treated quickly. What about Rena? What about the police? Why wasn't there a criminal investigation? You see, the police can't get involved unless they're called. I'm not 100% sure on that one, Chief. Even though one was badly injured without permanent damage, why wouldn't they file charges? That's what caught my attention as well. Either some threat or pressure was placed on them, or they had a reason they couldn't file charges even if they wanted to. We're talking about you after all. Of course you looked into it, didn't you? Well, yeah. But I told you at the beginning, didn't I? That the victims were all very reluctant to talk. They didn't want to touch on the matter, or rather, they didn't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk, didn't want to touch it, didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here in Yashiro-sama's curse. I could think of an explanation for this that has nothing to do with any of it, but I guess that is blissful ignorance on Keiichi's and the detective's part for not realizing it either, but I digress. Did the teacher at the school tell you anything? The school is a hallowed ground. You could say they tend to keep scandals under wraps. I didn't have a search warrant, so I had to tread lightly, you see. Then, there was no comment from the school? No. They denied the incident even happened. It's just, 3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day. That's all there was in the hospital records. The victims didn't speak. The school denied it happened. Then you don't know anything at all. Yeah. I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place. The victims also wish this incident to be kept from the public, so if you and I both forget about it, Mayabata-san, then this incident will probably just fade away. For a brief period, we sat in silence. At first glance, it looked like a simple assault case, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths are obscured by roiling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with. After that, she was suspended by the school, and during that time, she underwent psychiatric counseling. Did you hear anything from that doctor? Again, they were very professional in regards to their ethics, or at least very tight-lipped. Nothing even after you showed them your badge? I was told to get a warrant. The badge itself has no legally binding authority after all. Then how did you know that Rena confessed that it was Oyashiro-sama who did it? There was a nurse I asked in that department. She agreed to help me just from showing her my badge. I see. That nurse is stupid. Then, what did she say? Turns out that the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently all that she remembered was what she overheard from inside the room. The nurse said at that time, Rana Yuku was very calm and mild-mannered. It was more like she was confessing her sins at church than a counseling session. She spoke with her mother there for some of it, but partway through, her mother was asked to leave, so it became a private counseling session between just the doctor and Rena for a while. The part with the Yashiro-sama, when did that pop up? Partway through, she screamed the name suddenly. That startled the nurse, and that's why she started listening in. It was a Yashiro-sama! Rena suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what was said before that, so I had no idea what the meaning behind it could have been. The doctor, calmly and collectedly, asked Rena to have a seat. What is this Oyashiro-sama you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. The fundamentals of counseling were believing what you were told. Whoever abandons Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oyashiro-sama, and they finally got into me. That's the town you lived in before you moved here, isn't that right, Ryugu-san? I didn't want to move, but because of my mom and dad's circumstances, we had to. But Oyashiro-sama wouldn't allow it. Ryugu-san must have lots of friends in Hinamizawa. Even now, you must be missing them dearly, don't you think? I want to go back to Hinamizawa. No, it's not that I want to go back. I have to go back. I should have gone back much sooner, but now it's too late. Yashiro-sama has come. Yashiro-sama is the name of the god in Hinamizawa, isn't that right? Everyone knows. It's Hinamizawa's guardian deity. And if you ever try abandoning Hinamizawa by leaving, you'll incur his wrath. Yan moved quite a while ago, didn't you? Then, it was just now that this god has arrived, is what you're saying? You might not believe me, but Yashiro-sama exists. The nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and had left the room. That was all she remembered. That was the Yashiro-sama's doing, right? I do believe there is that kind of superstition in Hinamizawa, that if you leave the village, then you incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath. You should be familiar with this part, Mayabata-san. I knew very well that those scorned by the village incurred. What those scorned by the village incurred, wow. To hinder the dam construction project, they cursed the construction foreman to his death. Then the following year, Satoko's parents, supporters and leading advocates for the dam, were cursed to their death. But this is the first time I've heard of the curse incurred by leaving the village. This is my first time hearing that. I can understand outside threats being cursed by the village, but why also villagers who leave? Normally, people who leave villages aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say it, but I could see it as a rule that the people who come in are the ones who would be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. Curses weren't something to chase after people that leave, were they? Oishi-san pondered for a bit over on the other end of the receiver, then began speaking again. Well, I told you of long ago when Hinamizawa was called Oniga-fuchi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as the village of ogres. The villagers at the foot of the mountains worshipped the ogres, so Oniga-fuchi was hollowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered carelessly, You were cursed by Yashiro-sama. Those who set foot in Onigafuchi, in other words, Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that, but for leaving to also be no good, that's... Also the ogres, you see. They were being strictly watched by Yashiro-sama, so they would not enter into our world. In other words, Yashiro-sama probably restricted interaction between Onigafuchi and the rest of the world. I see. I finally understood what sort of thing Yashiro-sama was. So basically, Yashiro-sama is more like a warden than a protectorate deity, I guess. Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I don't know very much myself. This is mostly what was passed on to me from my grandmother. I could understand it a bit better if it was like that. Those who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and those who tried to leave would also be cursed. So, because Rena originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away, she fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means, because Rena moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Yashiro-sama. Is that what it adds up to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon afterwards they did move back to Hinamizawa after all. Those who abandoned Hinamizawa and left were cursed. But then, why only Rena? Shouldn't Rena's parents also have been guilty of the same transgression by moving away and have been cursed? Also, in this day and age in Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? If every single one of them was cursed, that would be insane. But in reality, it wasn't that big of a deal at all. Hiccups, why? At most, there'd be one person dying and one disappearing on the day of the Watanagashi. I don't like saying at most, though. Well, anyways, there's a lot I still don't know. Even if it was the Yashiro-sama's curse, it doesn't add up as to why her classmates, the victims who were beaten with the metal bat, wouldn't press charges. You don't think the victims were cowering because they believed that a terrible curse had befallen them, do you? Of course I didn't want to believe it, but more importantly I had just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Rena made between Yashiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Yashiro-sama's curse and went missing. I had recently learned that Satoshi had also become infatuated with the metal bat right before he disappeared, just like me. Then Rena as well. She was affected by Yashiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. And the weapon which she had used at the time of the horrendous act was, again, a metal bat. And finally, me. I'd encountered various things that were inexplicable, and I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learned that Satoshi did the same thing. It couldn't be. Had the same thing happened to Rena? But there was one critical difference between her and me, and the right click that shouldn't have happened. In Satoshi's case. That being, Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Rena was still here. Both of them had fallen victim to Yashiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally, me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Rena, Satoshi, and finally, me. Could it be that I really was under Yashiro-sama's curse right now? No, more importantly than that. What should I do now? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Rena was fine. Fine? Rena had undergone a change. I could only believe that there was something that Rena was wasn't okay, let's try that again. I could only believe that there was something that wasn't Rena residing within her. And here, right now, it was standing before me. Rena, please tell me. What will happen to me? Rena stood imposingly, not answering. Satoshi disappeared, but Rena didn't disappear. So, What will happen to me? He had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. It had become akin to the sound of her breathing. It was no longer a voice or an expression of feeling. Don't worry, I'll save you. Rena took one step forward, still holding the axe high above her head. Now then, one step closer, Rena's face spread out to fill my vision. Speak. One step closer. Rena's nose was close enough to touch mine, and was still pushing closer. There's something you want to say, isn't there? I'll listen. I'll save you, okay? Speak, okay? Speak, okay? I slumped down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get as far away as to get as far away from Rena. That's a lot of ha-ha-has. I had the gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end. Because when that laughing ended, the moment I picked up on that feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprang to my feet so fast, even I couldn't believe it, and pushed Rena away with both hands. Rena was light as a feather. Thrown about by the unbalanced weight of the axe, she was sent backwards as she had been carried off by the wind. As if she had been carried off by the wind. Wow. After confirming that out of the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. I was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. Get away from Rena. Run away. Survive! I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I'd been holding onto a bat the entire time. Such a worthless weapon. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. I sped even further down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it as well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't live. I could hear the laughter of that simulacrum of Rena coming from behind me. That's a word. Thanks, Keiichi. I rang through the trees and in my head, and slowly chiseled away at my sanity. The grove of the trees thinned out, my field of vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment, I was bewildered by the scenery. I felt I knew, but couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized. It was the damn site. The fact that I've dashed madly and ended up in a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. Did we tell him? Did we tell Keiichi? Should we tell Keiichi? Nah, I don't think he'd be able to handle it. I had a good view of my surroundings, but I didn't see a single soul here. This was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles in my legs were screaming, but I didn't care. If I stopped here, then I might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back, looking for an excuse to rest. Rena wasn't there. Instead, I saw two villagers walking around. I breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't Rena, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang the alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in and of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes. Empty-handed, they definitely gave the impression that they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, two adults wandering around without a purpose, it was enough to raise questions. But more than anything else, those eyes. They weren't chit-chatting while walking. They were both silent, heading forward, looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. That was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them easily by running. if they were part of the group after me, then they would come running after me. Either way, unless I hurried up, Rena would catch up with me. That's right. I was going to run. Deciding that, the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed towards me, as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Somewhere inside me, I had jumped to the conclusion that Rena was the only thing I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need to fear anything else. But right now, I realized just how blatantly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story Oishi-san told me about the demons all leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. I could tell they were both coming after me without even turning around because of their frantic footsteps. It was frightening, being unable to shake Rena off as she completely closed in on me. But this didn't even compare. Being pursued with such violent ferocity, this straightforward horror was unparalleled. One of the pursuer's arms grazed my shoulder. Now, it wasn't just their frenzied footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, it felt like time itself had stopped. I turned my head back slightly in that frozen world, realizing how close my pursuers had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of an adult. In less than the time it could take to blink twice, when the frozen time began moving again, they'd be right on top of me. And then... Don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that you can't get away was a given, then you need to make a decision. Go with the right leg or go with the left. You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decided that, the temporal singularity burst into pieces. Right. Left. I swung the bat in a wide arc with my right arm. Using that inertia, I stopped and suddenly spun. What? The two of them were clearly startled. Momentarily losing sight of me, both of their outstretched arms, ready to grab me, as Ted grasped at empty space. The man on the right, I applaud him being able to figure it out, spun around to the spot I shouldn't have been. It faced me in astonishment. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing my bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as I turned around. It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seemed like it had enough power behind it to knock him off his feet. But just knocking him down wasn't enough to scare him away. He got back up in no time. Both of them took a fighting stance and were ready to face me. This made me certain they weren't just two people out for a walk. They were clearly after me. It felt much easier than dealing with Rena. Just by not recognizing their faces, by not knowing them, it made things easier. I smiled wryly on the inside. What do you want with me? Next one is going to be right in your face, you bastard! It was fine if it was just a bluff. By barking out at them, I was able to fire myself up. They didn't respond. They spread out to either side of me, with unbelievably calm expressions on their faces. One of them would grab onto my bat, and the other would hold me down. Was that their plan? Taking both of them on at once would be impossible. Hot sweat poured from every pore of my body. Then I just have to settle it with my first move. I'd step in and strike the first one down. Narrowing my target down to the man on the right, who had already been knocked down before, I stepped in and swung with all my might. There was no way for an unarmed person to guard against it. It would cause immense damage. If they blocked it with their arm, their bone would snap like a twig. If they turned their back to it, then it was possible that the blow would travel all the way to their vital organs. It looked like he was aware of this. He pushed farther through the kill zone between us and delivered a fist right into my gut. Not good. With this distance, and this position, and in this state, there's no way for me to dodge it. the world flipped upside down. I understood that I was being tossed around like a rag doll. I landed on the soft earth without a sound, feeling the grainy soil press against my face. It didn't hurt at all. But the moment I thought that, I suddenly felt pain coming from the abrasions on my skin, as well as the contents of my stomach being forced upwards, flooding my mouth with a bitter sensation. I knew very well that I didn't have the time to relish this experience. Why would you want to anyways? I stood up as quickly as I could, but at that moment, the other man was already barreling towards me. Being able to comprehend calmly that I simply couldn't dodge it made it all the more upsetting. After plowing into my stomach full force once again, my assailant twisted around behind me and locked his thick arm around my neck. My throat felt like it was being crushed by his immense strength. I couldn't even contemplate that I was being strangled or that I was about to go unconscious. My vision simply darkened, and a silent whining noise began playing deep inside my mind. It took everything I had to keep myself from blacking out. While this was happening, the other man was more than likely standing in front of me. I wasn't able to open my eyes, but I could feel that he was there. There was nothing I could do now. Unable to shake his arm off me, I couldn't run. I couldn't fight back. Dire straits. I couldn't even come up the phrase that adequately described my situation. Not dead yet, boys. Somehow still alive. What's his secrets? A familiar ceiling. The smell of the bed and pillows. I knew them well. Was this my room? Normally there wouldn't be anyone in my room besides me, but their presence made me spring wide awake. When I did that, pain shot throughout my entire body. Feeling alright? I think you better just lie down for a bit. I was running in my room. Blood began to surge through my muscles and my capillaries. But Rena's smile belonged to the Rena I knew well. I knew I shouldn't let myself feel this way, but I relaxed thinking about this version of Rena was safe. Why am I... Don't you remember? After losing consciousness, nothing at all. My body had become more lethargic than I could ever have imagined. I guess that would be the expected outcome after exerting everything I had back there. I tried to at least clear my head, but I just couldn't shake the sluggish feeling out of my mind. I called the doctor. He should be here soon. I think you'd better just lie down until then. I wasn't injured seriously enough to merit calling a doctor. Sure. But knowing that someone impartial was coming was slightly reassuring. Why am I here? I'm sure I was at the damn site. That's what I want to know. What happened? When I got there, Keiichi-kun was already passed out. That's why I'm the one who wants to know. I was attacked by two weirdos. As I talked about it, I finally remembered what happened right before I passed out. Recalling that memory and the terror that went along with it caused the fogginess around my head to clear right up. Let's talk about those two for now. I didn't expect Rena to be nursing me. I thought Rena was trying to kill me. She would have had the perfect chance while I was unconscious. Not only did she not kill me, she had nursed me back to health. Amazing who dragged me all the way back here. Wasn't I heavy? Looking at Rena's delicate frame, it was hard to believe that she had not only gotten me back home, but even dragged me all the way up to the second floor. Did she have some help? Don't you remember, Keiichi-kun? Rena appeared a bit surprised, but still kept her smile. I only propped you up on my shoulder. You said you could walk out on your own and that you were fine. You don't remember? I didn't remember. My memory is fuzzy after the point where I lost consciousness. What about those two? Huh? When you got there, Rena, the ones with me, or rather, those two guys. There wasn't anyone. She said it bluntly. The way she stated it felt slightly unpleasant. I was just too timid at that time. I might have been able to force some answers out of Rena. But if I did that, then this kind Rena might transform into the scary Rena who I didn't know. Fearing that, I didn't press any further. Wow. Thinking about it, it was the obvious choice. If both of those men were there, I don't think Rena would have stood a chance. I couldn't find a way to explain it unless I assumed she brought me here after those two were already gone. Rena was still smiling. Her eyes sparkled warmly. Yet, I felt like I was hallucinating when I saw something akin to a shadow slowly creeping across her face. That small omen sent shivers down my spine. While Rena was still Rena, I needed to make contact. I needed to contact Oishi-san. Rena stopped me when I tried to get out of bed. She said it would aggravate my wounds, so I should sleep. I like to go to the bathroom, though. Sorry. Rena couldn't say anything else. While Rena stayed in the room, I quickly went downstairs to get the phone receiver in the living room. When I approached the front door, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. It must have been the doctor Rena had called. It was strange for a patient to welcome in the doctor who was making a house call, but it would be incredibly reassuring to have him here for the considerable time it would take Oishi-san to get here. I carelessly opened the door with that simple assumption, and regretted it almost instantly. Mion? Oh, you look just fine. I heard you collapsed, so I came to check up on you. How did you know I collapsed? I heard from Rena over the phone. Do I need any reason other than that? I understood why she would call a doctor. But why Mion too? Rena was descending the stairs behind me. Rena, doesn't Kei-chan look pretty alright? Sheesh, you made me worry all for nothing. That's true. Maybe I worried for nothing as well. We both began laughing. It appeared to be cheerful laughter, but I couldn't shake the feeling there was a darkness looming over them. Whoa, what's up with this shoe rack? How did it get like this? The shoe rack that I'd smashed to pieces had been like that since yesterday. It fell, you see, and the bed I was holding at the time slammed into it. This is what happens when seeing around something you're not used to handling. I kept the fact that it was none of their business to myself. But leaving it like this will really startle your parents when they get home. I'll fix it up for you later. Now come on, Kei-chan. The terminally ill need their rest. Interesting choice of words. Come, back in bed, back in bed. Both of them urged me up the stairs. I had no chance to call Oishi-san. He's probably dead anyways, though. I was pushed into my bed. As it was the first time Mion had been in my room, she began searching around it intently. She filled around my room and was scolded by Rena. You can imagine how it went. It was uncomfortable having my room poked around, but the conversation was so benign that it was heartwarming. During that innocent conversation, Mion said something as though it was perfectly ordinary. Rena, did you call the manager? Yep. Right after I called Mi-chan. He said he'd be right over. Manager? That out of place word gave me a bad feeling. Rena called a doctor, then called me on, and after that, she called a manager? Who was this manager? Since Rena and Mion's conversation was so peaceful, it only felt slightly odd. What are you two talking about? Who's this manager? Didn't you know, Kei-chan? We mean the manager. We mean the manager when we say manager. That clarifies so much. Thank you, Mion. Man, I knew Keiichi was fucked, but Mion showing up too means he's really fucked. Yeah, and there's whatever this manager is. Like the director of a movie, or like a foreman of a construction site. I dug through all my memories for a manager who might have business with me. Only one thing came to mind. What Rena had just said. The construction site foreman. The very first victim of the first incident, the dismemberment at the damn construction site. The foreman? But that was strange. He was supposed to be dead. There was no way they could call him. I don't understand what you guys are talking about. What does that manager have to do with me? You said he was coming. Did you meet to my house? I asked one obvious question after another. But all the two of them did was smile coolly at each other. There was a huge difference between how the two of them appeared and how my suspicions were playing out. Slowly, I felt discomfort and panic welling up inside me. I couldn't understand what Rena and Mion were talking about. Kei-chan, you've gotten into baseball lately, haven't you? Pretty sure the manager will be happy to hear that. So, who is this manager? The manager is the manager. So, who is this manager? Rena and Mion looked at each other and laughed haughtily. The disturbing cackle unpleasantly resounded around me. That laugh, long enough to be unsettling, ended abruptly. Oh yeah. We could finish up before the manager comes. You remember, don't you, Kei-chan? Her face was laughing, but Mion's eyes told a different story. Remember what? Keiichi-kun has forgotten, I wonder. About the penalty. Did you really forget? The homework with emoji? The homework where you were supposed to guess which one Rena made? You forgot about that homework, didn't you? I certainly did have that homework. But I had thrown away the rest of the emoji after I found that sewing needle. So I wasn't able to answer which one Rena made. The penalty for that? Why now? No doubt my question was written all over my face. Their answer to my question was that dry laughter. I could no longer make heads or tails of anything. I began to think that this entire day was somehow insane. Somehow? Keiichi. Strange. Incomprehensible. Being chased by Rena. Attacked by strange men. The penalty Mion and Rena were talking about. What were those two laughing at? It didn't take that long for me to realize I had been dragged into an abnormal situation. Who were these two? Who were these people? Who were these doppelgangers of Rena and Mion? Rena had gone in behind me at some point. Why was she pinning my arms behind my back? What are you doing? Don't move. This is your penalty. My body was already very sluggish, and Rena pinning my arms made it that much harder to move. I seriously tried to struggle, but she wouldn't even budge. My panic began to well up, and I realized this was well beyond the realm of jokes and pleasantries. This freakish, monstrous strength, it would have been impossible for the Rena that I knew. Then, these thin, frail arms grasping me firmly, Whose arms were they? Kei-chan, no struggling. Club rules. There are no exceptions. You can't fight against the penalty. Mion. No. That thing that looked like Mion spoke to me like how Mion would speak to me. But I was certain that this was not Mion. Someone who wasn't Mion. Someone who was just pretending to be Mion. Need to finish this up before the manager comes. Mion fished into her pockets and pulled out something bizarre. I could tell what it was just by looking, but for such a thing to be in her pocket, my mind wouldn't accept it. What is that? It was a small syringe, like what a doctor would use when you went to him when you were sick. Brenna held me even tighter. All I could hear that, and I could hear that clattering laughter that no longer sounded like laughter blaring into my ear. That eerie laughter. It wasn't something that the Rena I knew could ever produce from her own throat. This thing that was pretending to be Rena. Was this the real laugh? Unable to defend myself, the syringe Mion was holding drew closer, and that needle tip was waved in front of my face countless times. Don't worry, don't worry. It won't hurt, it won't hurt. What are you planning on doing? What kind of sick joke is this? What are you saying, Kei-chan? You know exactly what's going on, don't you? About what? I don't understand any of this at all. I know you know. No use playing the fool this late in the game. Stop talking nonsense to try and confuse me. You're going to have done to... blah blah blah. You're going to have done to you what happened to Tomitake-san. What? The same as Tomitake-san? I didn't really understand what she meant. What did I have to do? What did that have to do with this syringe? You're playing dumb, Keiichi-kun. You should have realized it by now. Rena whispered into my ear, laughing as if to admonish me? Admonish me. Ugh. But even the way she spoke was repulsive beyond compare. Playing dumb? Me? About what? What do you mean, the same as Tomitake-san? Everyone thought at first that it was a hit and run. Except when the officer got close... okay. Except when the officer got closer to check if he was still alive, he soon noticed it wasn't a normal situation. His throat was scratched out. From a knife or something? No. Nails. Nails? Nails as in fingernails? With those gouged through? That's right. Tomitake-san had clawed out his own throat with his own nails and died. There's no way someone could die like that. So then, for that to happen, we thought drugs were to blame, but nothing of that nature was detected. That's right. The police didn't find any drugs in Tomitake-san's system. The police told me they didn't find any drugs in Tomitake-san's body. Gweg. The two of them laughed together with that sickening laughter. Are the Gues the laughter? Of course they'd laugh. To assume that such a medicine didn't exist just because the police didn't know about it was completely foolish. Meaning, the drug that caused Tomitake-san to die in such a bizarre manner did exist. If Mion injected this into me, then that would probably be all the proof I needed. That would basically mean I end up the same as Tomitake-san. Become hysterical, scratching out my throat in my last moments, then die. For such an outrageous drug to exist. For Mion to be holding it. And that I was about to be injected with it. At that moment, I did not feel there was any need whatsoever to question it. What kind of idiot, when he's trying to dodge a ball flying straight for his face, has to think of a reason as to why it's flying at him? Just give up. Alright, then. Mion's actions lacked any gravitas? Blah, blah, blah. Gravitas? I don't fucking know. and that made it even more terrifying. There was none of the ceremony like when someone is sentenced to death. There was no hesitation at all, as if she were brushing her teeth. Mion reached out with one hand and grabbed onto my chest. It felt like electricity had run through the back of my head and the entire world had gone dark. Did I stand up too fast? Or did someone hit me really hard in the back of my head? Having lost my sense of balance, I was assaulted by a wave of dizziness. Wario voice, wag wag wag. I can't do a Wario impression. I squatted down for a bit. When I came back to my senses, my entire room had changed drastically. The numbness in my head was gone, and slowly, I could tell blood was flowing to my extremities again. How long had I been squatting here? How many minutes? Or has it been hours? It was almost as if the hands on the clock had stopped moving the entire time my eyes were closed. That's how little time passed. Really? The air in the room wasn't filled with that madness from before, only a dull silence. Rena wasn't there pinning my arms, and Mian wasn't there about to inject me with a needle. No way. Could it be all of it was a hallucination? There was no other presence in the room besides my own. It was the weirdest experience I'd ever had. I was certainly with Rena and Mian. I doubted my sanity for a moment, but I was also seized with some sort of comfort. I guess that terrible ordeal was a hallucination. Neither Rena nor Mian, they would never do something so terrible. My head grew hot. I could tell my emotions were welling up. Why? There wasn't a reason to cry. Why? It was sorrow. Why was I sad? I don't understand. I don't understand. Kind to everyone, not discriminating against age or gender. Mian. That Mian was sprawled by the window in an unnatural pose. Blood stained her a deep red from head down to her chest. That bright crimson smeared on the walls. That splatter had undoubtedly come from Mian. She always had that bright smile and was kind to me from the day I transferred. Rena. That same Rena was slumped at my feet and was making the same pool of blood as Mian. I couldn't comprehend what had happened. Did someone come to save me? Then they beat those two down with this metal bat? I finally noticed the weight in my right hand. How long had it been there? It was Satoshi's metal bat. It was covered in a deep red. There was no doubt that this was the weapon used to mutilate both of them. And I was holding that weapon. I was the only person in the house. Looking at this objectively, I couldn't think of anyone other than myself who could have done it. I did this? That's right. Keiichi Maebara. Of course I did it. I told myself gently, as if coaxing myself. Hey, me. There's no reason for you to remember it, nor is there a need to regret it. Eat or be eaten. You get that, don't you? But the blood. There's so much. Neither Rena nor Mion had moved an inch. It wasn't just a split forehead and a trickle of blood. Nothing that simple. The entire room was splattered with red, and that told me it didn't end with just 2 or 3 strikes. Were they dead? Both of them? The depths of my mind were calm, but on the surface I was panicking and agitated. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. What happened to your usual calm self? Come on now. Do like you always do. Throw your head back and take a deep breath. Come on. Once. Twice. Breathe deeply. Calm down. Calm down. I chanted that over and over in my head and relaxed. Color came back to my vision and smells reinfused the air. At the same time, I remembered what happened when I blacked out. Rena and Mion had attacked me. They were about to inject me with whatever caused the same symptoms as Tomitake-san, but right before that happened, I fought back. I twisted my whole body and threw Rena as she was pinning my arms. Then I followed through with my spin and rammed my foot as hard as I could into Mion's torso. It was soft. Rena tried jumping on me, so I tackled her as hard as I could and slammed her against the wall. I didn't let that brief moment of having them off balance slip by. Satoshi's bat was left carelessly by the side of my desk. Bleep. At that moment, everything went pitch black. There was nothing recorded past this point in the videotape on my mind. No, that wasn't right. It wasn't there was nothing recorded. It was recorded just fine. Just the other me inside myself had told me not to look and had turned off the TV. Just because the screen had gone black and I couldn't see it didn't mean that the videotape within me hadn't recorded it. The TV was just off. The video was still playing. The tape within me, creaking along, still playing. On the other end of that pitch black screen, the horrifying video was still playing on. Compared to this, though, the scene right before my eyes, was still so difficult to take in. There was blood splattered everywhere on the walls, the two of them in these unnatural poses. Not a sign of movement from them. I couldn't even tell if they were breathing. No matter what the circumstances were, my friends, these girls, I had attacked them. I may have even killed them. But if I hadn't done this, I would have been the one done for. Balancing that out on an imaginary scale, it felt odd that I didn't feel bad about it. Even if it was a bit excessive, this was justifiable self-defense. The proof was all here. The two of them collapsed here in Mion's syringe. Mion's syringe filled with some unknown drug would certainly solve the mystery surrounding the incident with Tomitake-san. And from the fact that both of these two were involved, they'd be able to pick out the criminals one after the other. Still, I might be suspected for this. But that was just fine. Anyway, now this should be a police affair. This wouldn't fade into the darkness like Rena's past incidents. As long as the police were involved, that should bring this to a close. They'll probably revisit their investigation on the chain of incidents. Oishi-san would definitely get to the bottom of it. Meaning, my wish of not wanting to die, of wanting to know the truth, that would be fulfilled in its most basic form. It was a matter of time now. The Dr. Rena called should be getting here soon. I'll confess everything to him. I need to contact Oishi-san. At that moment, I remembered. Besides the doctor, a manager had been called. It was easy to imagine that there was someone deeply involved with the incidents, judging from Rena and Mion's conversation. The ache in my chest, caused by the gruesome deed I'd done, dissipated rapidly. It was not over yet. This place was no longer safe. Stay calm, Keiichi Maebara. It's not over yet. I need to live long enough to tell the police of this incident. At that moment, I felt like I heard someone's voice from outside. Since people were speaking, it must mean there are more than one person. I moved the curtain ever so slightly and peered outside. It was a bizarre sight. About 4 or 5 grown men were all gathered at the gate. They very much resembled the two men who had assaulted me at the dam site today. This two might even be among them. There was one person there wearing a white coat, but he didn't look like a doctor at all. My gut told me he was in disguise, only posing as a doctor. That guy would probably ring the bell and get me to open the front door. Pretend to be a doctor to get me to open the door, and the rest of them would all rush in at once. At that moment, I saw the car parked behind my men, and my heart nearly skipped a beat. The white van! No mistaking it. That van, the one that had tried to run me down? The man in the white coat entered the gate and headed towards the front door. The rest of the men hid in the bushes and waited and watched him. I probably couldn't pretend that I wasn't home. Undoubtedly, they just break the window and enter. I need to get out of here somehow. Then, use a public phone to contact Oishi-san. Then meet up somewhere. First of all, I need a weapon. Then shoes. But before all that, there's one thing I had to do. I had no intention of dying. I'd live and reveal the truth about this nonsensical Christopher Yashiro-sama. But what would happen from here on, regardless of how determined I was, may bring about my demise. And that was why. There was one thing here more important than getting out of here right now. I need to get that clock out quickly and take down the note hidden behind it. Damn it! The tape was sticking to it fast. It'd be fine if it was torn a little. I opened up the slightly torn note and began writing another passage with a ballpoint pen. If I wasn't able to inform Oishi-san... Way to break the mood, dog. Thank you, dog. Then the only thing I could rely on was this note. I never thought a piece of torn college-ruled notebook paper could be this reliable before. I had no time. I only write what I knew right now. I needed to leave some sort of information that would lead them to uncover the truth. Renown me on the conspirators of the perpetrators. This was an undeniable fact, thank you, dog. I still didn't want to believe it. But it was a fact. Anyway, I'd leave all the information that would help lead them to fighting the perpetrators. There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. This was everything I was able to see from the window. There may be more. Also, there was that unidentified person known as the manager. To begin with, that term manager didn't even mesh with Hinamizawa at all. If they were going to include the managers from the past incidents, then only one is the construction foreman, the victim from the first murder. The very first victim in the chain of incidents. Killed in a lynching, his body divided into 6 pieces. His right arm was never discovered. The police should have confirmed that death. Bruno and Mion did call him manager. They said manager. They wouldn't use that term to refer to someone who was dead. The police would never even... The police would never even conceive that someone who was deceased could be involved. Could that be some sort of oversight? I didn't know. But even if I didn't know, it could be a big hint for Oishi-san. That's right. They needed to start fresh on the first incident. It wasn't just a simple dismemberment, but the start of the string of mysterious deaths that would follow. So, then, there must be something hidden there. Please reinvestigate the victim for the dismemberment incident. He's alive. His death should have been established after an autopsy. Logically, you would think as much. But was that really the case? Could have been some sort of ploy that they were able to deceive the police with? I shouldn't jump to conclusions, but he may still be alive. I have no time to ponder that right now. Oh, yeah. There was something even more important I needed to write. Take-san's death was from an unknown drug. That's right, that drug. It was an irreplaceable piece of evidence. No doubt, just by having this, everything would be uncovered. I couldn't just leave that vital clue laying on the floor. This syringe is proof. Writing that down, I stuck the syringe onto the back of the clock with plenty of tape. so that absolutely would not slip out and fall onto the floor. Firmly. Firmly. Ding dong. The bell rang. They were here. I couldn't write anymore. But even still, there was one last thing I had to write. I have no idea why it has become like this. This may be the closest thing to the truth out of everything I wrote on this note. If you are reading this, then I am probably already dead, though you may or may not find my body. If I was going to write out everything that could happen, either dying from the curse or being demoned away, you, who are reading this, please uncover the truth. That is my only desire. With this, my last will and testament was complete. It wasn't certain that I was going to die, but it was my final plea, just in case. I folded the note, stuck it back onto the back of the clock, and returned the clock back to its usual spot. I couldn't help but pray. Oishi-san, if something happens to me, I'll leave the rest to you. After that, I gazed down silently at Rena and Mion. This was probably the last time we would ever see each other. I wonder why. I wonder why. Rena, Mion, I really had thought all of us were friends. But why did it end up like this? I never had any fun in my previous school. I only worried about standardized test scores. About if the school I hoped to get into was where I really wanted to go, or a safety net. That was all I talked about. It was a dull life. The people I called friends were also my rivals in studying, in competitions, and personal records, and standardized test scores. Everyone here taught me how unhealthy that lifestyle was. This month was really fun. Making a fuss over lunch, making a fuss over the club, making a fuss over the festival. Something hot began dripping from my face. Uncontrollable tears. I should have had no obligation to shed tears for them. But they wouldn't stop. Even if they were after my life. Even if they were trying to kill me. Everything that happened this month, I wouldn't forget it. Or could it be those happy days were all a facade as well? Was it all a trap, meticulously orchestrated up until today, to ensnare me? Could it have been that I had just arbitrarily assumed that they were my friends? That couldn't have been the case. Both Rena and Mion, they really were my friends. Those happy days, there was nothing fake or unclear about them. Someone probably forced them to try to kill me. Or their minds were taken over, possessed by the supernatural entity known as a Yashiro-sama. Regardless, both Rena and Mion, they were the best friends ever. And when they were coming after me, it wasn't of their own volition. Wait, they weren't the kind of people to sell off their friends, regardless of whether or not they were forced. There's no way such a thing, being possessed by Yashiro-sama, could happen in reality. Then, did the real Rena and Mion come after me? What was I thinking? What a silly, dumb idea. Having beaten down both Rena and Mion, I was still debating if they were the real ones or the fakes. There was no real or fake, only reality that was before me. Rena and Mion were sprawled out at my feet. That was the only truth. I was only trying to twist the facts to my benefit, that I had beaten my friends to death. No matter how I spun it, it wouldn't change reality. Rena and Mion were both dead. It felt like there was a crack in the dam of strange emotions I was holding back. It felt like my calm state, which was nothing more than a bluff, had receded, and in that opening, insanity was leaking out. I killed them. I killed them. Rena and Mion. I killed them. The doorbell rang again. The unrelenting echo pulled me back into a state of composure once again. I didn't have a moment to spare. Quickly, I needed to get away. I didn't want to die. I would uncover everything after that. The identity of whoever or whatever had pushed me this far. Even if I had to drink mud and eat grass, I would survive. I would survive. I would definitely survive. I killed Renner for that very reason. I also killed Mion. I went that far just to keep living, so I can't die. For my sake, and for the sake of the late Rena and Mion. I had to survive. I ran towards the door and grabbed my shoes. The doorbell rang again, as if to urge me on. Behind this single, solitary door, they were there. Keeping quiet, I headed towards the kitchen, headed towards the back door. Before opening the back door, I put my ear to it and checked for and checked for people outside. No one? After I put on my shoes, I opened the door slowly, so as to not make a sound. There he is! The back door! A piercing voice echoed out. That voice stabbed through me, setting my hair on end. I had to run. Get out of here, Keiichi! One after the other, I felt stuff like rationale and intelligence, those things you use when you have time to spare, spill out of me. I didn't have any pain from the branches scratching my arms and forehead. Blech. My autonomously pulsing heart also felt neither fatigue nor pain. My entire being just wished to live. There was nothing else it desired. It probably had no complaints whatsoever, so of course I wouldn't feel fatigue. I just ran. Just recklessly rushing into the direction I was already heading. Even if nobody was chasing after me, I'd still be running like this. There wasn't a thought in my mind about where I was headed. Turning around, I felt a presence right next to me. That presence was, without a doubt, chasing me like my shadow. If I took even one misstep, I would be devoured. That's what I thought. So I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I ran. At full speed. Quack, 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 quack. That was the chirping of the Higurashi telling me it was evening. Trying to tell me something, and then I finally heard it. The wailing cry of the victims who didn't make it. Would I be joining them? Yes. Quack, 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 quack. Only the Higurashi knew. They knew everything. They definitely knew. So, I ran towards where I could hear more of the Higurashi chirps. But the farther I ran, the farther away their chirping became. I couldn't get near them. Why are you all running away? Was it my fault? Was I the one to blame? Then I'll apologize. I'm sorry. 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 I felt that only the Higurashi knew. Achievement unlocked. Chased by shadows. Oh boy. The smoking room was filled with a cloud of cigarette smoke. The expensive smoke filter gave off some crackling electric noise, so it didn't seem like it was doing anything at all. Why do smokers have to be shoved so far down this corridor where the sun didn't even reach? I recalled hearing that the tax revenue from tobacco was about 1/10 of the municipality's revenue. Sure. We were the most heavily taxed members of this municipality, so I really wish they'd show us a little more respect. Why would you discard the 5 Manzu there? It's just It's just decreasing your options. One of the younger detectives was having a staring contest with a mahjong magazine called Next Turn. You're still in Tepai if you cut the 5 Manzu. If you're betting on a high te, then shouldn't you be going into it with a mangan? Kuma-chan, look at the pond. They all discarded a 5 Manzu. It's a safe tile. You'd hate it at the end game. Someone was staring at a tenpai at the last turn, wouldn't you? The kid let out another groan, put out his cigarette, then took out another one. I just don't agree. Why would you reduce your own options? By the way, can't you recall Ron with your winning tile in that high tea? What? Why is that? Just then I heard a voice coming from down the hall. Are you here, Oishi-san? You have a call from a civilian. Whoa, ain't that something? Well, see ya soon. Kinda surprised Oishi-san's alive, to be honest. Well, why can't you call Ron on it? Hold on for a second, Oishi-san. The man sitting in the seat Oishi-san was heading towards laid at the telephone receiver. Outside line, from a payphone. Oh, why thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting. This is Oishi. Who is it? Oishi-san? Hello? If it isn't Maibata-san, why good evening. From the tone of Maibata-kun's voice, I already knew he was in a predicament. This was the first time Maibata-kun had phoned me, and he was calling from a payphone. Please calm down. Did something happen? Well... Ah! His voice was erratic over the line. He had completely lost his sense of composure. After checking that nobody else could hear, I prompted him in a hushed tone. What happened? I'm sure all this mahjong would be really interesting if I knew how to play mahjong. Same. Calm down, Maibata-san. I can have the local officers head toward your location. I'll be there soon, too. I think that's impossible. His voice was quivering and hoarse. He wasn't surrounded by people even as he was making this call, was he? Maibata-san, you're calling from a payphone right now, right? Where is that payphone? There were no other sounds besides Maibata-kun's voice. It had to be a phone booth. I scratched out a note and thrust it at my colleague sitting across from me. Hinamizawa, phone booth. He understood quickly and hastily started on the eternal lines. That's probably what it said. Calm down, Maibata-san. What is your current situation? It usually wasn't a good idea to someone panicking to do so, but this was not a usual case. Maibata-kun didn't just get in trouble, get away, and then call me. He was in the midst of something dangerous right now. But yelling at Maibata-kun right now would just needlessly cause him to be even more frantic. Maibata-kun wasn't just calling to seek help. He was trying to tell us something more than that, and whatever that was. If I didn't get it from this call, I was certain there would never be another chance. My colleague pushed a note in front of me. There's only one booth in Hinamizawa. The patrol car is on the way. 5 minutes. That's too long. How many officers are in there? 2. Not enough. If it was just as I imagined, there were likely quite a few people surrounding Maibata-kun. 5 minutes was too long. Did you call the officers stationed in Hinamizawa? They're scheduled to be on patrol. They're currently out, and it'll be impossible to contact them. God damn. Kuma-chan, bring the car around. Understood. Hello? Oishi-san? Hello? It's alright. I can hear you loud and clear. There was something wrong with Maibata-kun. That wasn't a normal coughing sound. Vomiting? Or was it blood? Had he already been attacked? Was he injured? I didn't mean to right-click, I swear to fuck. Maibata-san, the police are on their way. They'll be there in a couple of minutes, so hold on somehow. Hello? Can you hear me? Maibata-san? I could hear on the other end of the line that he was having a coughing fit. The worst possible situation popped into my head. Maibata-san, who is the culprit? How many are there? I thought at first the culprit was human. I couldn't tell if he was having blah blah blah. I couldn't tell if that was a cough or vomiting. Are you alright? Maibata-san. I thought that the culprit was a person and not Yashiro-sama's curse up until right now. But I guess in the end it was an intense bout of coughing, then vomiting. But I guess Yashiro-sama does exist. No, is here. Maibata-san, please just calm down. I was I had been thinking it was strange for a while now. It's been following me this whole time. I run and run and run and run, but it just sticks to me like my shadow. But slowly, so slowly, it's digging itself into my back. My Bata-san, are they right now, perhaps, right behind you? Behind me. Right behind me. Please, my Bata-san, I can tell you're scared, but please, who is it that's right behind you? I can't just look behind me. If I do, I understand that you're scared, but please tell me. You just need to turn round a bit. Who is it? Who is behind you, my Bata-san? Right after I said that, I could hear him vomiting intensely. What followed was a nightmarish sound. My Bata-san, can it be that you're clawing out your own throat? There was no answer, but I could hear something like scratching. A little face you set Hifimichu. There was a bang, as if something was being hit. My Batakun had probably dropped the receiver. I could hear groaning and vomiting all over the other end, and a repeating abnormal noise. Hello? Hello? My Bata-san! Hello? I knew how far away my voice would sound on the other end, but I couldn't help but shout. At that moment, I heard whispering, coming from the other end. I couldn't tell what he was saying. From the way he was saying it, was he talking to himself? Or was he talking to someone there? Hello? My Bata-san? Rather than whispering, it was some kind of mantra he was chanting over and over. I focused my senses, trying to pick up on what he was saying. What was he repeating? What exactly? Beep. Suddenly the line went dead. Did he use up his time? It was because it was a payphone. It was because it cut out so abruptly. The last thing he said came out so clearly in my mind. Oishi-san, the car is good to go. Oishi-san? It was, I'm sorry. Oishi-san? That's what he was repeating over and over. He said, I'm sorry. He had a gut feeling. There was no longer a need to hurry. I could hear the chirp of the Higurashi spilling in from the open window. Quee, 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 quee. I should have been able to hear them this entire time. I just wasn't paying any attention. Why did I focus on them all of a sudden? Quee, 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 quee. Were they trying to tell me something? Only the Higurashi knew. That's how I felt. Re. Yeah. July 1983. In Himizawa, a remote village near Hishibone City, there was a murder involving two female students. The suspect is Keiichi Maedabata, age 17, I think is what it said. Or 16. The suspect called over two female classmates, Rena Ryugu, Mion Sonozaki, to his house and beat them to death with a metal bat. The scene of the crime was the suspect's room on the second floor of his house. The inside of the room was covered with a significant quantity of splattered blood, and there were signs of a struggle with the victims. In addition to the scene of the crime, the entryway, living room, and kitchen all had traces of a struggle. At the entryway, the Shuriken wall had evidence of being impacted by a strong blunt force. It is believed to have been the same bat as the murder weapon. Having no traces of blood, it is believed the destruction occurred before the murders. There is a possibility that the suspect overpowered his victims to keep them from fleeing. In the living room, the rug had been pulled back, then thrown aside. It is hard to believe that this had a connection to the struggle with the victims, and thus the reason for this remains unknown. In the kitchen, the garbage bag was torn apart, and its contents were spread out on the floor. Garbage was strewn about in the surrounding area, and handprints believed to belong to the suspect were discovered. It is believed that the suspect had for some reason taken out the garbage and struck it with his fist. The reason for this remains unknown. In addition, there is a note stuck to the fridge. The words said, "Was there a needle?" were written on it. The meaning behind this remains unclear. Just in case, the garbage was searched, but a needle was not discovered. Though the garage door was functional, it had been left open ever since the suspect moved in. The garage door was found closed. The suspect's fingerprints were discovered on the garage door. The reason behind this remains unknown. The suspect fled the scene of the crime. However, a patrolling officer, Unedited local PD, found the suspect collapsed inside a phone booth. At the time of discovery, the suspect was unconscious in critical condition. He was rushed to the local hospital for treatment, but did not regain consciousness and died 24 hours later. The results of the autopsy indicate the immediate cause of death to have been hypovolemic shock. It was determined that the suspect had clawed at his own throat with his fingernails, and the resulting bleeding caused his death. With a similarity to the death of Tomoe-san the prior week, the police believe there to be a connection have opened an investigation. However, due to the wishes of the local authorities, it will be a confidential investigation. Due to the abnormal nature of the death, it was suspected that drugs were involved, but as with Tomoe-san, no traces were discovered. What prompted all of this remains inexplicable. As such, the case is being treated as an act committed on impulse. However, with several accounts of the suspect's bizarre behavior leading up to the incident, it is possible that it was premeditated. Separated from his group of friends, isolation, inexplicable behavior. Several days before the incident, the suspect began carrying around a metal bat. The suspect was observed displaying aggressive behavior, as well as talking to himself at school. The classmates had actually heard portions of what he was saying. 2 days before the incident, the suspect declared to his parents the possibility of his death. Due to these circumstances, the police have begun an investigation on the possibility that this crime was not committed on impulse, but was instead planned several days in advance. Afterwards, a note was found in the suspect's room that he had written himself. The note was written on 2 sheets from a B5 college-ruled notebook that had been torn in half. As if trying to conceal, it was stuck hidden behind a clock on the wall. The contents are written in the appendix. The police believe it to be strongly related to the incident. The police changed the line of investigation based on the possibility that the suspect was involved in some sort of incident himself. However, no further clues were found, canceling the credibility of the note, and I could not read that final paragraph because this is going by itself. However, the following year, suspicion arose regarding the nature of the note. The note was not written on 2 halves of B5 paper from 2 separate sheets, but was originally a single sheet of B5 paper. In order to erase several lines from the middle, someone had torn them out. Judging from the size of the letters, the missing section is estimated to be 2 to 3 lines. It is highly probable that the person who eliminated the lines in question is not the suspect. In addition, judging from the traces of the large quantities, blah blah blah. The person who discovered the crime was blah blah. He underwent voluntary questioning but denies involvement. Any damages to the thing. Blah. God. It's going too fast, man. The suspect's note. 1. I, Keiichi Maebara, am in fear for my life. I do not know why they are after my life. The only thing I do know is that it has to do with Yashiro-sama's curse. Rena and Miyana's spirits are the perpetrators. There are 5 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. This is all on the first sheet. Everything below has been ripped out. This is the second. From the second sheet, everything above has been ripped out. I have no idea why it's become like this. If you're reading this, then I am probably already dead. The only difference may be their presence or lack of a body. You who are reading this, please uncover the truth. That is my only desire. Keiichi Maebara. Do I want to go to the log and find out what we skipped, or just deal with the fact that those paragraphs are gone into the void? We'll just accept those paragraphs are gone to the void. Picturing Keiichi punching the garbage is so funny. I mean, a little bit. Anyway, Hinamizawa syndrome is a bitch. Indeed, indeed. And also, not being able to read all the paragraphs because the thing is just going new also is a bitch. No, that's okay. We got the gist of it. It's okay. It was really fast. Yeah. I'm surprised I was able to keep up as much as I did and only lost like 2 paragraphs. A new scenario has been unlocked. All cast review session has become available. To play it, select extra on the title menu and then pick the all cast review session. Nah. That I have a lot of footage to go through. I don't know how I'm gonna split it up because they're definitely not gonna make it into one. Nearly. Let me think how math. 7 to 8 hour video? No, I'm not gonna do that. No. Maybe 2 4-hour videos, but not one 8-hour video. But it's still gonna be a bitch to edit, but at least it's out of the way. We could do Steins Gate. And I'll leave the extra content for like maybe as a whole, like exclusive to the Discord server, or maybe for you guys to venture on your own, because this episode is in fact free on Steam. And we already have a shit ton of content, so I think we can live without that on my YouTube channel. But, that was a lot. I hope you guys had fun despite that. I know you were all quiet, but, like, there isn't really much that can be said when death... That was a lot of fucking reading. Okay, I don't really know what else to say. There's a lot to process. We can all process together, I guess, in silence. The tension, indeed. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this to end this way because, like, with the newer adaptation of the anime, I don't remember how the original anime handled the first death, but in the newer adaptation, the first death was Rena and Keiichi killing each other, like, blatantly. Like, with how Rena, like, forced her way, was trying to offer him the food. Like, I don't remember in between, but, like, it was from there, like, that same night, and then they ended up killing each other instead. Like, that's what happened in the more recent adaptation. Don't remember what happened in the original adaptation. So, really wasn't expecting this. Oh, jeez, I didn't mean to hit my mic. I'm so sorry, Mike. But, yeah. That's fun. And this is just episode 1. I thought for sure Rena was just gonna wail on Keiichi with the axe machete thing. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, the way that Rena and Keiichi killed each other in the more recent adaptation was Keiichi hitting her with the bat and her hitting him with the axe. Like, yeah. It was pleasant. On that note, I hope Daifuku is still alive, because I did see a notification of him going live about the same time. No, I don't need to hear my own stream, thank you very much. But it does look Daifuku is still live, so let's raid him as soon as Twitch cooperates with me. Please and thank you. Why I don't want to hear. On that Stop. Note. Okay, anyways. Right, Daifuku 381, right? Yeah. He is currently playing Elden Ring. Yeah, he is. He's playing Elden Ring, so we will get to say hi to him. And hopefully he'll provide us with some emotional recovery from this shit show. But either way, thank you guys so much for joining. And I'll see you guys on Saturday, where we'll be starting Steins Gate. Alright. I feel something else I could say, but I'm going to go ahead and go on. I hit the thingy, but it's not showing the thingy. I may have to tell you the whole, like, oh yeah, raid him now. Okay, well, it's working on this side. Can't anymore. But, raid let's how did Daifuku, guys. My system update.
Onion. Can we shout out for the mod chat? Let me see what mods. I think Kyoto got Asian vibes. We're gonna give them a shout out as well. They do very nice art. And it's cool. What are we doing? Oh, no, it's all down. Oh, okay, there we go. Oh, Higurashi. Yeah. Oh, wait. Is that a visual novel? I only know about the anime and the sort of remake. Are they bringing out